Hello and welcome to Japanimation Station's Kyoto Vacation, an anime podcast brought to you by the folks at the Weekly Stuff Podcast. I'm Sean Chapman.
And I'm Jonathan Lack.
And we are here to kick back, relax, and talk about some anime this week on the show. We are talking about the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi. If that's giving you a sense of deja vu, it should, because we talked about the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi 2 episodes ago. We talked about it last episode as well, but today we are talking about the 2009 rebroadcast of the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi with the 14 new episodes in there, although really we're talking about kind of 6 new episodes because we ended up doing an entire insane 4+ hour long podcast on the Endless 8, which was not the original plan, but it was inevitably what had to have happened.
And, you know, I think it's the best case scenario for everyone, because if you are one of the people like us who loves the Endless 8 and wants to hear lots of discussion about it, well, you have the second longest podcast we've ever recorded for our anime show at over 4.5 hours long. So you can go listen to that and get, I think your money's worth for the Endless 8 discussion. And if you fucking hate the Endless 8 and you're a goddamn heathen who does not understand its brilliance, you can listen to this one, and we're barely going to talk about it at all because we already did that. So best of both worlds. Everyone can get exactly what they want out of our discussion of Suzumiya Haruhi.
Yes, but specifically what we're talking about today, right, what we've done is we watched the 2009 rebroadcast, right? So, you know, the general recap, we've talked about it before, but in case people are a little bit confused or need a reminder, when the show originally aired in 2006, they did their 14 episodes that were in that shuffle order, where they were all, you know, outside of the chronological order of the events of the literal narrative. Then in 2009, and we'll get into the specifics of kind of how this happened, but in 2009, they rebroadcast those 14 episodes in their original chronological order, but there were 14 new episodes made that were broadcast inserted into that chronological order, interspersed throughout, although most of them are in one big chunk, which is the Endless 8 and then the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi episodes. And so what we've done is we watched all of those. So we rewatched all the original season 1 episodes in their chronological order, and then all the new episodes. And then, of course, we did our insane Endless 8 Diaries thing, where we watched those episodes one day at a time and then recorded a section on each of those episodes for that podcast, which aired last week.
Yes. So basically, I think to like summarize what this episode is about is there's sort of 3 overall things to talk about. There is the one-off episode Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, which airs early in this presentation of the season. Then you have the 5 Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi episodes, which are the other new thing other than Endless 8. And then we need to talk about how the whole season fits together in this particular form, where we are watching it chronologically with these episodes interspersed, which is an interesting experiment. So we have those sort of are, I think, the 3 items on the agenda, we would say.
Yes, yeah. And it's I think, a fascinating journey, because it's for me, you know, this is the first time I've watched through this show since I saw the movie, right? I've talked about that a couple times before. And it's very interesting watching this knowing what the movie is, because I think it's extremely clear, and this is just true in terms of the production as well, that like the choices they made in terms of what they included and how they did it, it's all about building up to the movie. So it's like the way that they're handling this kind of chronological reordering and the new material that they put in is all about kind of putting in all the pieces you need to have what is going to be effectively the true finale of the series in terms of its anime form, which is going to be the disappearance of Suzumiya Haruhi, which we'll cover next week. But it's fascinating to me the way that like things change and how the original episodes are recontextualized when you put them in chronological order, and then especially then when you have all the madness of like the Endless 8 and all that put in there as well. It is a very different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did quickly, I don't know where else we'll talk about this, but I wanted to add this here. I did do some extra research since we did the season 1 episode, because we had some not disagreement, but with some confusion on how were the episodes from season 1, which were, to be clear, they were not just aired out of order. They were produced to be aired in that order. They were from the, as you documented, and this is in the fan book, and this is well documented, that from the very first planning meeting where the principal, you know, creatives of the series met for the first time, that was the plan, was this out of chronology telling. So it was produced that way. But then how it was released on DVD was always a question. And I had said that my understanding was that it had always been released in chronological order on DVD, with the exception of the Mikuru Asahina episode 0 thing, the fake movie, always being presented at the start. And I did do some extra research. I am correct about that. I did go back and look at the original DVD listings for the 2006 DVD volumes of Suzumiya Haruhi, and they were released in kind of a weird way, where the Mikuru Asahina episode 0 thing was just its own standalone DVD that wasn't even listed as a volume of Haruhi. Then Haruhi volumes 1, 2, 3 are 2 episodes apiece, the 6 episodes of the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi in order. Then volumes 4, 5, 6 are the next 6 in their chronological order, and then the final volume was Someday in the Rain just on its own as a final episode, which is a great volume of anime, because it's just, if you're going to sell one episode on a volume, that is the one episode to sell, I think. But yes, that is how it was always presented. So this rebroadcast was the first time, I guess, it had been presented on TV this way. But it is a weird thing where that production order, which I think needs to be understood as the way season 1 on its own at least was intended to be seen, was never disseminated on home video in its original order, which is just a weird, an interesting oddity of this show.
Yes, amongst many strange oddities, right? I mean, the whole show is fucking madness, top to bottom.
And I forgot the best part, which is on the DVDs, they're listed also, though. So they have the episode titles, but they are listed, the episode numbers are still the broadcast numbers. So, like, if you're watching, like, I think Volume 2 has Melancholy Parts 3 and 4, which are like episodes 8 and 10 or something crazy, right? So they're listed that way. So it's still, on the DVDs, though, it would tell you how to watch it if you collected them all in the broadcast order. Very weird, as everything with Haruhi is, but relevant to this conversation.
Yes, but yeah, let's talk about the history. So there's not like a huge amount of history to this, and we talked about some of it with the Endless 8 stuff, although I'll recap some of that because it's relevant here. But I love how they handled this, because it is just like, it's the most fucking bullshit thing. It's so great. So in terms of the background of what I'm just going to kind of like casually refer to this as season 2, because that's just easier to refer to it as, even though that is not in any way a reasonable descriptor for it. It's just, it's just easier to talk about. So for what we call, the season 2 stuff, the first sort of hinting of it was in July 2007, so this would have been about a year after the airing of the original show. A new Haruhi anime project was teased in an advertisement in the newspaper Asahi Shimbun, and there were some further teases about it in 2007, but there was no sort of details about what the nature of a new anime project was for Haruhi. It was just like, we're working on something new. Nobody knew, is that a compilation movie of like maybe the original 6 episodes? Is that a new season? Is it a movie? Like, nobody knew. So then a rebroadcast of the show with episodes airing in chronological order began on April 3rd, 2009. So this would have been 3 years after the premiere of season 1. And so to put this in context overall, this starts airing 2 weeks after the end of Clannad After Story. So if you're trying to put this into, for our purposes of this podcast, where this is all kind of lining up with a little bit after the end of the last part of our Japanimation Station's Kyoto Vacation episodes. Information got out from the broadcasting studios that there would be 28 episodes. So to be clear, Kyoto Animation never officially announced what this was. They never said there are going to be new episodes. They never said that like how many there are going to be, anything like that. The only way that people knew there were going to be more episodes than season 1, and that this wasn't just a rebroadcast of the season 1 episodes in chronological order, which is all that, like, if you started watching it, that's all you would think it was. Because no other anime does that. No other anime just sort of says like, oh, we're just going to re-air season 1 and never tell you there's a season 2, and then at the end of season 1, there's just new episodes. No anime's ever done that before. So everyone just is like, it's confused. But on like TV listings on like, a Japanese version of the TV guide kind of thing, it says there are 28 episodes. That's double the episodes of season 1. So people assume there's got to be new stuff. And so most fans speculated that there'd be a season 2 of the anime that would air after they finished all the season 1 episodes. And maybe that would be the disappearance stuff. Who knew what it would be? On May 1st, 2009, that is when the first new episode, which is Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, aired. And that is the point. It is only once you get to episode 8, Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, that anybody knows what is going on, which there are newly produced episodes, right? We know there's 14 of them. They're newly produced episodes, and they're interspersed within the chronological order of the original episode. So you did not know when a new episode would air if that was going to be a new episode or if that was just a rebroadcast of one of the old episodes. And you wouldn't know that until the next one aired. And so it is the most mindfucky, like, how would you even deal with this kind of thing, right? And including, like, Super Driver and Tomare, the new opening and ending. Super Driver doesn't play on episode 8, but Tomare, the new ending, does for episode 8, and then you don't get that again until you get to the endless 8 episodes.
And that's the funniest part. That's by far the funniest part, is that it's Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, oh my god, there is new stuff, a few more weeks of old stuff, and then 8 weeks of Endless 8. That is the funniest part, is that, like I think you and I would consider Endless 8 the meat of the season, because it's fucking amazing. But in terms of forward plot momentum, the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi is the forward momentum that, fully adds and recontextualizes events from season 1. Like, Endless 8 is not directly connected to things that happened in season 1. The Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi is this thing that is, like, filling in all these things that happened, not just the Mikuru Asahina episode, but basically anything connected to the festival that is there around kind of the middle of season 1, but chronologically the end. It's all recontextualizing stuff from that. Yes. And so it's hilarious. They made you wait for it.
Yes, and then that leads to the Endless 8 stuff. We talked about some of this on the Endless 8 episode, just to recap some of it, because it is so good, right? So the Endless 8, that was originally just a single short story in Volume 5 of the light novel. So it was one short story. And again, the reason it's called the Endless 8 is because it's about August repeating, and August is the 8th month of the year, right? So it is easy now to look at the Endless 8 and say, oh, it's 8 episodes. But at the time, there's no reason to think it would be 8 episodes, because that's what the short story is called, and it's just about August. And so they aired those 8 episodes, right? Each episode was made as independently as they could, right? They made deliberate efforts for the 2 through 7 episodes to try to keep those production materials separate so that people weren't subconsciously influenced by other storyboards, right? And so they tried to make it so that those episodes were a clear sort of reflection of that individual directors and that team's sort of like idea of how they wanted to present that material, dealing with, generally speaking, the same scripts, although they made like ad-libs and edits to those scripts per episode, but more or less it's kind of the same script outside of 1 or 2 scenes where a specific detail is slightly different, like the number of loops you're in. And so that's kind of how they went about making those episodes. And then in terms of them airing, right, nobody knew what the fuck was going on. Nobody knew when it was going to end. Nobody knew it was going to be 8 episodes. As far as people knew, the next one could be the last Endless 8. You would have no fucking idea. It could be that all 14 of them were Endless 8 episodes. Maybe there were 2, 3, 4. You had no fucking clue. And so you just tune in, and for over the course of 2 months in the real world, right, because that's 8 episodes, it's 1 episode a week, that's 2 whole months, they aired those Endless 8 episodes. That would have, I think we love those episodes, but that would have pretty dire consequences in terms of the financial health of the season 2 content. So Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, that 1 volume that sold on its own as like a special thing, kind of like the Someday in the Rain one, that sold about 38,000 copies. And that's about in line with what the season 1 volumes did. The Endless 8 volumes, which were sold with 2 episodes apiece. So there are 4 Endless 8 volumes, each one with 2 episodes. Those ones did not sell nearly as well. They sold about 1/4, so 10,000 copies per volume on average, which again is about 1/4 of what the average was for the other Haruhi volumes, which I still contend is, yes, it's a huge drop-off. It's still incredibly impressive that they sold 10,000 copies for those volumes, because that's still a lot more than most other anime managed to do with totally normal episodes of anime that have normal plot and all that kind of stuff and aren't like an insane art house experiment.
Again, considering we contend that is a full-on avant-garde experiment, those 8 episodes, that collectively they sold 40,000 copies, it's pretty fucking impressive, Yes. A lot of avant-garde stuff doesn't sell anything. So there you go.
Yeah, and then the Sigh volumes recover a little bit, but not to the same extent. The movie we'll talk about the movie, but the movie does very well. But this is definitely like, if you're an accountant, you look at this and go, "What the fuck were you thinking?" If you're someone who likes cool, weird anime shit, you look at this and go, like, "Yeah, it's worth it."
Yeah.
Like, who gives a shit? You know, like years later, who gives a shit how many volumes the DVD sold? You can sell as many DVDs as you want, but this is they left their fucking mark on the history with the Endless Eight. So that speaks more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and so it's, you know, this quote-unquote season 2 of the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi is like the greatest prank played in the history of televised media, because it's just, you know, I'm so jealous of people that could watch it in real time. You know? It's like, what an experience that must have been, just to have no clue what was happening, where this was going, how many new episodes there were going to be, or what the content of those new episodes would be. It's just fucking great.
I do think an extra oddity also is that the season 2 episodes, if you pluck them out and ignore the season 1 episodes, they do stand as a season in terms of like how they're made, because Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody does the thing where it starts without the theme song and feels like a season premiere. I think in a lot of ways it feels like a season premiere. Endless Eight goes through. Now you have the normal theme song and credits, Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi, all of that, and then Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi episode 5, the finale, is very much a season finale. It even has a scene at the end that is, I think it's I've read that book, and it's slightly there in the book, but it's expanded and kind of broadened out to be very clearly like, this is an ending moment for the new material. And so it is not like it's very well integrated in a bunch of ways we're going to talk about, but it also does, if you were to ignore the season 1 episodes, it is a totally viable thing to just watch the 14 season 2 episodes. They're a little weirdly structured for a ton of reasons we have and will continue to talk about. But I think that's another kind of interesting thing. You finish the Sigh of Haruhi 5, and you feel like that's an ending of something, and then you kind of go back into the season 1 episodes to kind of finish the recontextualization.
Yeah, and that is how I originally watched it, is I did watch them separated out. Like, so I watched, like, you know, I tried the shuffle order originally for season 1, was confused by it, went back and watched it in chronological order, but just the season 1 episodes, and then watched the quote-unquote season 2 episodes in obviously chronological order, because that's the only order for those ones. And then I'm pretty sure after I watched the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi, I did go back and watch the movie, the fake student movie, the episode 01, because you kind of, once you finish watching the Sigh, you have to watch that episode again. Like, it's just not possible to not go back and rewatch that. Probably the most recontextualized episode in the history of anything. Like, there's that is a completely different episode of TV when you watch the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi storyline. But yeah, I think you're totally right. The season 2 episodes they're totally digestible as their own chunk, kind of just nestled within the timeline of the original show. But there are other anime that have done that exact thing before, of having, you know, here's like the time, like this season takes place over the course of a year. Now we're doing a second season of episodes, but we're filling in material we skipped over from the original manga. Like, that's not an uncommon way of structuring a sort of sequel season of TV, particularly for something that's kind of has a slice of life-ish vibe to it. So yeah, it's a mindfuck. Everything about the season is a weird mindfuck, and I love it.
Absolutely. So do you want to just go in order through the things we have to talk about and start with Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody?
Yes. So let's talk about Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody. This is episode 8. This one is directed by Takemoto Yasuhiro and written by Shimo Fumihiko, you know, our favorite writer on the show, we've watched like 100 episodes this dude wrote, or something fucking ridiculous at this point.
Because he wrote all the key shows, just to be clear,
yes,
like Clannad and Air and everything. Yeah. So this is an all-star one, because Takemoto Yasuhiro is like one of the other major forces here on this season, right?
Yes, yeah, because that is also something to hit, is in terms of the production credits. The production credits for this batch of episodes is just madness, and it's like kind of impossible to actually tease out exactly what the roles are, because it's all nestled within the original ones. But basically, for the new episodes, they credit Ishihara Tatsuya is now referred to as So Kantoku, or chief director. Well, literally, his credit is substitute brigade leader, because Suzumiya Haruhi has gone from super director to just brigade leader. So she's in the credits for every episode as the Dancho brigade leader. The Dancho Dairi, or substitute brigade leader, and then in parentheses, chief director is Ishihara Tatsuya, who, of course, he was just the director of season 1 episodes. And then now you have the brigade leader assistant, Or I like to think it's like the fucking Office joke. It's assistant to the brigade leader, or is it assistant
Yes.
brigade leader? But that's Takemoto Yasuhiro, and then in parentheses, his credit is director, Kantoku. So we've seen this split before in some stuff we've covered, like Gundam The Origin, for instance, had Yasuhiro was the sort of chief or overall director, and then you had the MS Igloo guy was the one who was the director who had that kind of more, he's in like kind of doing the day-to-day stuff, and then the chief director is more that overall vision. I don't know like how much that split is here. Like I don't know exactly what the division of duties is, but my impression is from like interviews and stuff is that Takemoto Yasuhiro is the one who had like the most influence over a lot of this stuff. It's because it's definitely one thing I want to stress is that it's different than like Yamamoto Yutaka, who he had that weird chief inshitsu kind of credit that was like this weird credit you can't really translate into English well, that's sometimes translated as sort of assistant director or just sometimes like series director. This is, in terms of the way that the Japanese credits work, Takemoto Yasuhiro's credit is like several jumps above what that credit that Yamamoto Yutaka had was. So just like make sure that people aren't confused about that. It is not the same sort of sub-director credit that Yamamoto Yutaka had. This is like a higher level credit. And
if you want to know why Yamamoto Yutaka was not involved in season 2 of Suzumiya Haruhi,
yes,
you can go listen to the Lucky Star episode, which has a big long segment called Get Fucked Yamamoto Yutaka, where Sean explains to us again, why he was not involved in future KyoAni productions, for good reason.
Yeah, obviously we've got the episodes that he worked on in the original show are interspersed in here. But yes, other than that, he was not involved in any way, shape, or form with this production. He was off making that, a Kan Nagi show, I think, for A1. The staff for in terms of the writing was Suzumiya Haruhi and her delightful pals. That's the same credit as it was the first time around. It's the same sort of like bunch of writers basically that came back to do episodes. The character design is Ikeda Shoko, which was the same as last time, although they did redo the character designs. They're slightly different in the new episodes. They're a little bit updated, but it was still her. And then the other big credit, we talked about this in one of the Endless 8 episodes, I think it was the episode 4 discussion, is Chief Animation Director is Nishia Futoshi. So he takes over. Ikeda Shoko had been the chief animation director and character design last time around. Nishia Futoshi takes over that chief animation director role. That's kind of the like checking to make sure everything's on model and all that kind of stuff. Like that's kind of what that role is. And so he is really important because he's going to be in a lot of stuff from now on. So he goes on to be the character designer and chief animation director for the movie Disappearance of Haruhi Hyoka, which we're going to watch in the not too distant future, the Free series, Sexy Swimming Boy series, A Silent Voice, the movie, and then the Sound Euphonium movies as well, not the TV show. And so he is definitely someone who is like his style in terms of animation director is really kind of central, I think, to where the overall KyoAni look goes from this point on. You're really going to see it a lot in Hyoka because there's a lot of cuts in the new episodes for season Suzumiya Haruhi 2 that you start seeing in episode 8, and I like really noticed it with Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, and it kind of like in a way that was almost distracting because it's like, oh my god, this just looks like the Hyoka characters in a weird way. Not in a bad way. It was just like I had never noticed or thought about that before. But it is a pretty noticeable sort of, I think, overall upgrade in terms of how the characters look. Their animation is much more fluid. They look much more like a sort of modern KyoAni characters. They've got that sort of very silky, smooth hair animation that I associate so much with KyoAni. That's all over the place in the new episodes, and that is like the main person I think is most responsible for that shift in aesthetic is Nishia.
Right. And I mean, the other thing that has happened here is between 2006 and 2009, KyoAni has jumped to full HD productions.
Yes.
So, like, all the Haruhi Season 1 episodes, although they're available on Blu-ray, they're not actual HD. Those are upscales of, I don't know if it was actually, like, animated in standard def. It was probably some kind of, like, 540p kind of weird thing, because I don't know if it's, like, quite just old standard def, but It was not full HD. Clannad is the one where you see them make that jump, and like Clannad just has a level of like clarity in just how the animation is captured and presented that is a big leap over like the stuff that had come before, and that leap continues here, where this is like very visually on par with Clannad in a bunch of different ways, including that like extra level of fluidity and everything. And it's sometimes a little jarring when you're going back and forth from the season 1 to the season 2 episodes, but it's also kind of cool to just see like, 3 years is not nothing, but it's such a big leap for those 3 years. You do see like a lot has happened at KyoAni in between, and they are fully cooking at this point.
Yes, because, as you say, we're past all of Clannad at this point. So KyoAni is like very used to now doing the high definition animation. Obviously, like 2006 to 2009 is just a big jump in the history of anime in general in terms of how that sort of use of digital animation has evolved. But it is very, very noticeable. As soon as you get to episode 8 and you are in the new episode, you're like, oh shit, okay, this like looks really good. Not to say that the season 1 episodes didn't look good, they did. But when you have that like direct juxtaposition, it's pretty crazy how significant the glow up is for some of these new episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody?
Yes, this is one of those where my mind was kind of blown when we watched season 1 and this episode wasn't a season 1 episode.
Right.
Because this story is so central to like the overall narrative of the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi, right? It's heavily referenced in all the season 1 episodes, which is one of the things that makes its integration feel incredibly natural. But this is the story, right, of the 3 years ago. So we know in the sort of like the overall lore or whatever that all the other characters tell Kyon that all this weird shit with Haruhi started 3 years ago. And you also get a piece in the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi episode 1 where Taniguchi tells Kyon about this whole thing where Haruhi had snuck in at middle school and drawn the Nazca sign looking chalk lines in the back of the school, in the sort of like school yard or whatever. And that was the thing that like sort of made her infamous at her middle school. And that is what this story is, right? So we get Kyon traveling back in time 2-3 years ago, meeting Haruhi as John Smith, which I fucking love, as the name he
doing
gives
the Doctor
himself.
Who thing there.
Yes, and subtly altering. Either is he altering the events of history, or is this what always happened? The rules of time travel in Suzumiya Haruhi are not. Well, I guess they are kind of defined, but they're also not defined in some ways. But yeah, it is such a central episode, and then the sort of visual echo of the story of Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody is through all of the other episodes of the show. And that's something that I noticed when I watched season 1. I don't think I brought it up on that podcast because it was a relevant point at that point. But when you're watching the season 1 episodes in chronological order, you notice, or you should, that every episode after episode 8, the Tanabata tree, which is that sort of the bamboo leaf tree that for the Tanabata festival, which is that, July 7th holiday in Japan, where you write your wishes on a little card and then you tie it to a tree. That tree is in the background of the dansho, or the brigade room, for the whole rest of the season, and all of the other episodes, the season 1 episodes and the season 2 episodes. It is there as part of the general set. And even though this episode was not adapted for the season 1 material, they still thought to put that detail into the background of all of the season 1 episodes, so that once you finish episode 8, you know what is important about Tanabata, you know what's important about that event. That reminder is there in the background of every single episode from this point forward, which is just fucking crazy to me. And it's why I was shocked that this episode wasn't in that batch of season 1 episodes, because it's very prominently in the background, and you are constantly seeing that there is this thing here and something has happened with Tanabata. It is vaguely referred to a couple times in season 1 episodes, and then it is only here once you get to episode 8 of the season 2 repodcast stuff that you actually get that detail, or that story in full detail.
Yes, and it's fascinating. I mean, and it sets up something we're going to see with all of these, which is that there's a ton of details like that. Like we mentioned in the Endless Eight Diaries, of course, there's the frog head mascot thing that they get at the part-time job in every Endless Eight episode, which is just there in all the season 1 episodes past a certain point in the club room. And then, of course, the Sigh episodes are just chock full of it because, in one sense, they had already adapted the book The Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi through the Mikuru Asahina episode, and including all the details that are there in the story that would be filmed and stuff, right? But now they're doing the actual story as written in the novel. And for people who don't know the way the novels are constructed, they would have had access to basically the first 6 when they were making season 1, because the 6th book was published early 2005. There was a 7th that is another like full novel that was published late 2005, but they would already have been working on everything. And most of what is in those first 6 books is adapted somewhere in the 2 seasons. Volume 1 is the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. That's the first 6 episodes. Volume 2 is the Sigh. So there you go, those 5. And then Volume 3 is where you start getting these short story collections. Volume 3 has The Boredom of Haruhi Suzumiya, which is the baseball episode, Mysterique Sign, and Remote Island Syndrome. Those are all in season 1. Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody is in that book and kind of notably absent from the season 1 episodes. And then Volume 4 is The Disappearance, which will become the movie. And Volume 5 is The Rampage, where you get Endless Eight, Day of Sagittarius, and a story they never adapted called Snowy Mountain Syndrome. And then Live Alive is from Volume 6. So that's kind of the way they did all this. But definitely, like, when you look at the bulk of what they adapted, Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody is kind of a notable omission. And I'm curious, it must have been something they really wanted to do in season 1 because it is noted there. And I do understand, like, I do and I don't understand, because it is a much better story than something like Mysterique Sign or the Remote Island Syndrome. But I also see how those episodes are so like key to the game that Haruhi Season 1 is playing, particularly when it's aired out of order. But it's interesting. I'm very glad it is adapted now, though, and is there in the run. I would almost like just recommend people, even if you're watching Season 1 out of order and everything, just throw in Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody in there somewhere, because it's so good and it is so key to that story.
Yeah, although it is also since I know like what the movie is going to be, what the plot of the movie is, there are specific little tiny things in this episode that like hook into specific elements from that movie in a way that like it makes sense that when you think about what this project is at this point, what KyoAni is working on behind the scenes isn't just season 2. They are working on season 2 and they are working on the movie.
Right.
So that's part of like their overall vision of what they're adapting. And so that's like sort of, I mean, it is still weird that it's not in season 1, as you say, because it is such a central story, but there is like a specific reason why it does kind of need to be here based on like how it can kind of foreshadow or connect to some of the things that the movie is going to do. But it is such a sort of monumental episode in the overall fiction of the series, and it does make it kind of a cool element there for the season 2 episodes as being this sort of like weird bomb that's sort of just dropped on you, because it's also, you know, it's pretty soon after that first batch of episodes for the Melancholy of Suzumiya Haruhi, right? So in chronological order, we've had the 6 Melancholy episodes, and then we had the baseball episode, The Boredom of Suzumiya Haruhi. Then the one after that is Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody. So it's right after you're getting out of that sort of initial sort of big, long storyline, and then you're pretty quickly getting into this first new episode. And so in the pacing of the overall rebroadcast, I think Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody is in this really important position where it's kind of helping you transition out of that original storyline of the Melancholy, which served as the spine for the shuffle order of the original TV broadcast and was the entire philosophy around broadcasting it out of the narrative chronological order, was the desire to have the Melancholy be the finale of that season. And so I think Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody helps as this sort of pivot point because it is so important, because it feels so weighty, and also since it's directed by Takemoto Yasuhiro, it's got that 2009 level animation. It has this sort of huge step up in terms of its fundamental production values. It feels like it's this little special episode you get, and there's something I like about how much sort of emphasis it gets because of that position in the overall rebroadcast, and how just kind of gorgeous this episode looks.
It definitely feels like in a different version, in another lifetime, this would have been an OVA episode, kind of like what they had with some of the Clannad OVAs or the Air OVA or something like that, because it is a similar level of quality, but also a similar thing of how it is kind of going back and reframing some things from season 1, including the just incredible detail that Kyon and Mikuru spent 3 years sleeping in Yuki's bedroom, and every time they go over to Yuki's house in those early episodes, Kyon is also in the other room with Mikuru asleep. Is just such a great piece of like time travel fiction. I love it.
Yes, that is like the most mindfucky part of this whole thing, is them going and visiting Yuki. She sort of like mind links with her future self or whatever through that, like the sign. I love the little detail. She takes her glasses off, right? So that's how you know that it is now like the Yuki that we know.
Yes.
And just the way that they do that whole scene where she puts Kyon and Mikuru in the room, closes the door, and then opens it again, and it's been 3 years. Just the way that that's all framed for the audience is so effective. Yeah, and it's such a great mindfucky idea to think about. Oh, when episode 1 of Melancholy Suzumiya Haruhi started, Kyon was already in Yuki's apartment, right? Like all this shit had already happened from that perspective. And when he says that and asks Yuki that, where he just goes, wait, so you mean just like the whole time when we had that whole conversation, it flashes back to the beginning of episode 3 of Melancholy, where you have the giant, insane exposition dump from Yuki? It's like, wait, the whole time that was happening, I was asleep in that room over there. She just goes, yes.
Yuki has a hell of a poker face. It's a great detail. You also get more of adult Mikuru.
Yes.
I wonder if this was also a reason for not doing Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, is because of where adult Mikuru comes into the story in the Melancholy. Is she has a big scene in episode 5, I believe, which is right there at the end of the season. And I think they want that to be emphasized. And I think if you had seen her significantly before in this episode, it would have felt off in that broadcast airing. And I wonder if that was part of the decision, because obviously she leaves quite an impact here, bringing them back into the past and sending Kyon on this sort of weird errand, which I'm still not even entirely sure what the purpose of all of it was. And I don't know if I'm supposed to be sure. But I do know it's adorable, because he winds up meeting little Haruhi, who is a terror all of her own.
Yeah, all that stuff is, and you're probably right. That is probably why they didn't do this for season 1, because I don't think this episode works outside of the chronological order. Like, I think you need to have watched and seen all of the Melancholy episodes for this episode to like make sense. So that is probably why, or one of the main reasons why they didn't intersperse it. Because yes, you get like some of those details of where Kyon starts to suspect that the people that are giving Mikuru he knows her orders is just her future self, which they never confirm if that is exactly what's going on, but the suggestion of that I've always loved, as just like, that's so fucked up and kind of weird and crazy. And then yes, you get little girl Haruhi, little middle school Haruhi, and all the stuff with her is absolutely fantastic. Aya gets to do some really great stuff playing the younger Haruhi, and then Kyon's sort of like the way he tries to navigate that relationship, right? Of like, he knows he's there to help her, like he needs to interact with her, but he also wants to prevent giving her too much information. But he ends up, of course, being the catalyst for her decision to go to North High, which is where she meets Kyon in the first place. All of that, it's just, it's nothing that, like, if you've seen time travel fiction, it's not like this is something you've never seen before, but it's so well handled in such a very good Haruhi-esque way to sort of build the intrigue in the larger sort of weird esoteric nature of the world building and the lore of the series in general, to have this sort of strange meeting between the two of them here. And Kyon is sort of the person who sets his own sort of fate in motion with Haruhi in the future.
It also, I think this is where, if you're watching all the season 2 stuff on its own, and the way the season 2 stuff recontextualizes some of the season 1 stuff, is I think all the season 2 material really, and we'll talk about this more with Sigh and how that then puts a light on the final episodes of the series. It clarified for me that Haruhi is so fundamentally a love story between these two. Mm-hmm. It's a love story where they only kiss once at the end of Melancholy, and they are often angry at each other. But, like, by the end of the series, by the time you get to Someday in the Rain, they are effectively a couple. And I think, like, everybody in the school knows it. Everybody else views them that way. I think a lot of people just assume the two of them are dating and don't bring it up. And they're the only two who don't know it. Like, they're the only two who are not saying it, but they are. And I do think there is a sort of, like, star-crossed lover's destiny thing going on here, almost, of, like, fate itself intervened in a weird way where Kyon is not actually special, quote-unquote, in the way Itsuki and everyone else is. You know, he's not an Esper, and he's not a future man or any of these things. He's not an alien robot. But he is the one person on Earth who is special to Suzumiya Haruhi in a way that grounds her to, like, existence. And that is something that in this episode we see kind of transcends time and space.
Yeah, and it's the way in which he is, right, his sort of like repressed desire for the fantastic, right? Like, he has the same desire for the extraordinary and the fantastic as Haruhi. It's just he doesn't let himself give into that, right? And it's like, but that repressed desire, like, lets him push Haruhi forward, and he sort of, like, you know, is willing to go with Haruhi to those places in a way that nobody else is, right? And so that's part of what, like, the core of their relationship, right? That sort of Haruhi brings out that sort of desire for the extraordinary and helps push Kyon outside of his shell bit by bit. And then Kyon helps sort of ground Haruhi and find the fantastic and the amazing things in the world around her, right? And kind of bring her there and, like, give her that sort of motivation to go out there and be proactive about the things that she wants to do. It's just such a amazing relationship, and so much, as you say, of season 2 is about sort of exploring and defining that more, because it was more sort of, in season 1, it was more kind of impressionistic in the way it came across because the narrative was chunked up in this crazy way. And so you didn't see in detail the shift in the relationship between Kyon and Haruhi that happens before and after the cultural festival, which is the story of the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi. Their relationship with each other changes dramatically over the course of that story. And you see the outcome of that with Live Alive, but you don't see the process of the shift. And here, so much of season 2 is about showing that process for his relationship with Haruhi. And I also think the other main theme, and you get in the season 2 episodes, is his relationship with Yuki, right? So you get that here with his, like, that whole insane interaction at the end of this story, and him sort of, like, starting to realize more about, like, how, like, mad Yuki is, right? It's sort of like how insane the world she lives in is, and how different her framework and her perspective is, how kind of alien she is. And he's sort of grappling with that sort of what parts of her are alien, what parts of her are human, right? And then you get that's a major theme in the Endless Eight, where she is just this character, the only character experiencing and actually remembering the doldrums of the 500 years of this repetition. So it's like those two pieces, I think, the Haruhi-Kyon relationship, the Yuki-Kyon relationship, to me are what these episodes are really about exploring.
Yes. I will say, I Day of Sagittarius, which is the one where they play the video game, that's one you can effectively drop anywhere. It's like the most standalone episode of Haruhi. But I will say, its recharacterization for me in season 2 was, this is Yuki's reward for everything she has fucking been through, is now she gets to play with the computers more. And God bless her for it, because she's been through the fucking ringer with these people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because all that stuff also, like, thinking about the Yuki piece, like, the episode that comes immediately after Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody is Mysterique's Sign, which I actually like way more. I enjoyed that episode a lot more on this rewatch. Like, I didn't particularly like it too much on season 1 when it was just sort of, like, dropped in there as a random episode. But I think when you have the sort of, like, more of the framework of seeing some of this from Yuki's perspective, and that... right, because after the Endless Eight, you had that 500 years thing. But she already had the 3 years, right? She waited for 3 years from the past of Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody for her to actually, like, meet Kyon in the present time and for all that shit to catch up. So it's like, you know, she's constantly sort of, like, out of sorts with time and all of those things, and it's just there to wait and observe. So Mysterique's Sign and then Day of Sagittarius, which are kind of two of the main episodes where Yuki is kind of proactive about something, right? It's heavily implied in Mysterique's Sign, she's the person who actually sets the events of that episode in motion, and you only get that info at the end of the episode. But that, I think, feels much richer when you have the interaction you've seen in Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody and sort of, developed more clearly that trust between her and Kyon and how deep that runs. It's an episode that I didn't think was going to be recontextualized that heavily for me, but I enjoyed Mystery Sign tremendously more after Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody compared to as a sort of like whatever episode it felt like in season 1.
Well, in season 1, it's one of those episodes that is intentionally confusing you because it comes in between the two parts of Remote Island Syndrome. You have to watch Remote Island Syndrome 1 and then jump back an episode to Mystery Sign and then jump forward. So it's doing that. It is before you know all the information about what the closed spaces are and all of that stuff. So it is designed to do this sort of weird, like, frustration of exposition thing in season 1. And I actually was surprised too that it works as its own story contextually really well. Like, it's not my favorite episode of Haruhi, but I do think, like, I enjoy, I think, the gesture that they're doing in season 1 with it, but it actually, again, they didn't change a frame of any of these, but, like, just in its air order as its own story and not as part of the grand experiment, it does hold up, and that's interesting.
Yeah. It also, that's the one where it starts with a piece of narration from Kyon referring directly to events from Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, which is the most mindfuck moment. Like, Endless 8, whatever. That's the part you're like, what the fuck? What the holy shit, that's crazy.
That one blew me away. And obviously, they had the books to go on. So, like, it's not completely crazy. They knew what the story of Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody was, but, like, they do just leave that opening narration when they made Mystery Sign in 2006, just as though they had made Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody. Mm-hmm. They must have been thinking, like, if this does well, we're going to do X, Y, and Z in a hypothetical season 2, because, like, I just don't know how else you make some of those decisions. It's crazy.
Yeah, because, I'm pretty sure that they'd have, like, a notion that there were, like, some of the stories that they wanted to be able to do and were looking for a format, right? Remember that the fact that they were working on new Haruhi stuff was announced in 2007. So it's, like, clearly they were, like, working on and thinking about and finding a way to do this. But yes, it is still, when you're watching it, it's insane how much it just feels like, oh, Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody is like, it feels like a lost episode from season 1 that just sort of has been slotted in there because it's of how smoothly it connects the boredom and Mystery Sign together.
Yeah. And then you have the Remote Island Syndrome 2-parter, and after that we are fully into all the season 2 stuff with the Endless 8 we've talked about. They're fucking brilliant. And then we get the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi. Thanks for listening to Japanimation Station. If you're enjoying the show, please remember to like and subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and tell your friends.
You can support the show directly on Ko-fi at the link in the description, and remember to check out the Weekly Stuff Podcast, our long-running series on movies and video games on all platforms.
And now, back to the show.
The Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi is, like, somebody must have edited these into a movie, because I did not remember this thing that they do here where, like, it is like each episode is directly connected. Like, some of them, it's literally like an episode ends with a line of dialogue, and then the next episode is responding to that line of dialogue. It's pretty
I was
nuts.
going to say, like, forget editing it. It feels like it was just made as a movie. Mm-hmm. Which it wasn't. I can look at the directors. There were 5 directors who did it, 5 writers, all of that. But it does feel like a theatrical movie that just got cut up into 5 episodes. Sean, it feels more like a movie turned into episodes of TV than the Mugen Train arc of Kimetsu no Yaiba does. Like, they did more, I think, on the Mugen Train from the movie to the 6-episode TV version to make it feel like 6 episodes of TV. This really does feel like to a point where there's ones like episode 4 has a moment near the end where they very easily could cut and have that episode end and feel like it resolved an arc. And instead they move on and end on a line about we're going to go look for cats, which is kind of if you know the lore of Haruhi, you sit up in your seat and go, Shamisen-sen's a coming. He's coming.
Yes.
And that's what that is doing. But yeah, it's crazy. I wanted to mention, so I did, in between recording all these episodes, I read the first 2 light novels. So the Melancholy and the Sigh. And I have to say, I think the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi anime is a, like, substantial improvement on the book. Like, in a way that... Have you read any of these? I'm just curious.
So I'm about halfway through. I've been very slowly picking my way through the Melancholy book because I bought that book, I ordered that book from Japan, 8 years ago or something. It was like one of the... I was very overambitious when I originally ordered that book. It was like, I cannot read this at all. My original idea was I ordered the Japanese version and I bought the English translation. I was like, oh, I'll use the English version to help me. It's like, that is not a way to try to read a book. I don't know, maybe somebody could try to do that, but that, it did not work with my brain. And so instead I studied Japanese a bit more and then eventually was like, it's a better idea to try to read a manga or a visual novel because that has a lot more supports for the reader than just immediately jumping into, it's a young adult novel, so it's not like I'm reading fucking Natsume Soseki or something crazy, but it's still a lot higher level than basically a picture book,
Oh, and the language in Haruhi as a light novel is way more complex than a lot of other light novels, I will just say, because I spent my summer for research reading light novels from various isekai series, and then it is funny when you jump over to Haruhi, it's like the same format. It's even reading it in translation, you can tell it's a different level of complexity.
Yes. It's much more literary than something like a Sword Art Online, for sure. But it's not as hard as say like Kata no Kyokai. That's definitely harder.
Right.
Although that's mindfucking but more in the literary form. So I'm about halfway through the Melancholy light novel, which I'm happy to finally be reading that copy. And I've been enjoying reading a physical Japanese book because I've mostly done all my Japanese reading digitally because obviously it's just a lot easier to do. But I did order, because it was pretty cheap, I did order the rest of the light novels and they're going to be here pretty soon, which I'm excited about. Cool. So I haven't gotten to Sigh yet. I'm reading through Melancholy. It is very fun to read. What is the Sigh book like?
So, yeah, and just to back up, I think the Melancholy book is brilliant. I think people should read it. It's like the KyoAni adaptation of those 6 episodes is a very direct adaptation, but I think the book is still, there's a lot of surprises in it. I think Kyon's internal monologue is just very rich. A lot of it is in the anime, but obviously not all of it, because it would be impossible, because it's also just a book that, there's a lot of, dialogue and language and monologue, but it's fun. And I think the thing that the season 1 presentation, I think the way it enhances the book is through the non-chronology thing where they're interspersing other stories to enrich the story. But in terms of the adaptation itself, it's pretty one-to-one. The Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi, what you have to remember here is that it's just the next story. So if you're reading the books, you have the Melancholy story, and then you jump right into the Sigh. And you have none of the other things that we've had. You don't have Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, you don't have Mr. Sign, you don't have Endless Eight, you don't have any of those other things, or all the season 1 stories from later on. And so you just have this book. And I do think there is some growing pains, I think, in that book of where it kind of feels like if you just look at the raw structure, the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi is a fairly direct repeat of Melancholy. It is that Haruhi gets an idea in her head and it spins out of control, and everybody impresses upon Kyon that it is going to be, their powers are useless here, it is going to be his responsibility to solve this, and he comes up with a sort of surprising, unexpected way of solving the problem. In Volume 1, it's he gives Haruhi the kiss. In Volume 2, it's he does the weird disclaimer over the end credits, and that is what solves the problem, right? And I do think their relationship deepens in some ways, but it feels a little bit like kind of this is going to sound like I'm insulting it more than I mean to, because I'm not insulting it. It feels like the Home Alone 2 kind of thing, of where it is a little bit of the same story in kind of a new package with the new setting, which this one having the filmmaking and stuff. It is still worth reading. It is still very fun. But I do think it is notable that without a lot of the other stuff that we've seen, how directly it does kind of just follow, if you read them in quick succession, which is what I did, it feels a little repetitive. And I think it feels like Haruhi has not evolved much as a character. The KyoAni adaptation is very direct. It's not like they're massively changing things, but I think the story is massaged. I think the voice acting is on point to a certain degree. And I think there's subtle changes they make across the board, including in how they've recontextualized season 1 material, where this becomes a really key turning point for Haruhi. And I think the way they show her character arc in these 5 episodes, where she is, I think, one, she is less abrasive in the early episodes than she is in the book, I think. Like in the book, she's pretty awful to everybody in the book in a way that feels like she's regressed since the first book. And I think KyoAni makes a very conscious decision to have it be kind of a build. Like, she's a little mean early on, but in just a normal kind of harmless Haruhi way when they're like going and getting their, camera and all that kind of stuff. And it's not that bad yet. And it gets worse as it goes along as she gets frustrated. And then there is episode 4 of Sigh, which I think is one of the best episodes of the whole show, is that big breaking point between her and Kyon. And like they build to that in a way that makes it feel like really hard. Like it's like emotionally really hard hitting in a way. In the book, I think it goes by just a little bit faster because Kyon is kind of always mad at her. And then there's the reconciliation at the end of that episode and then into episode 5. And it becomes about, I think a bit of maturity on her part. And then I think it's also really helped by having the season 1 episodes come right after it, where her like being really mean to Mikuru on the roof in Psy episode 4 is the last terrible thing Haruhi does in the TV show. From that point on, like the final episodes, Live Alive, Sagittarius, and Someday in the Rain, she's not instigating anything crazy. There's no big threats they have to deal with. She's a little mean to Mikuru here and there, but in the very kind of like, quotidian way she always is. But like the world is never on fire again because of her. In fact, in Live Alive, she does this really selfless, amazing thing. And I think all of that just makes it, it's the KyoAni touch. I don't know what else to say. The book is a good little framework, but I do understand why they chose to just do the movie part of it for season 1, because that's kind of the more fun thing there. I think you have to have all that other material, and then I think you have to have a really deft hand in the adaptation to transform this story from just another Haruhi story to kind of one of the beating heart pieces of this entire narrative, which they have done. And I think these 5 episodes are masterful.
Yeah, because it's, not having read the book, but obviously like seeing the show, knowing the plot, and knowing some like the prose of the books, I do think that like, it seems to me that if the writer, if Tanigawa had, approached the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi the way he would have done the later ones, this feels like a thing that would have been a short story, not a whole novel, right? Compared to, since I know what the plot of The Disappearance of Suzumiya Haruhi is, that is a like, okay, this needs to be a whole novel. You could not possibly do that plot as just a short story. It's way too involved. Whereas like you can very easily imagine the let's contain this in a single short story version of Haruhi wants to shoot a movie and they get wrapped up in a big weird adventure around it. In the same way that, with the boredom of Suzumiya Haruhi, that's just a short story. It's just she wants to go to a baseball game and here's like one little piece about it. And so from a certain perspective, the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi feels like if you took the baseball idea from boredom and tried to do a whole light novel on it, like how much that would stretch out and then have to sort of replicate and sort of belabor some of those plot beats that Melancholy does. But I think what ends up happening here with the way that they adapt it is you are like, I think, really hungry for one out of Endless 8. You're really hungry for like plot movement. You want to, as much as I love Endless 8 and I fucking love it to death, it's one of my favorite anime things ever, still it's 8 episodes where the same plot happens over and over and over again. Even if it's amazing avant-garde direction, you are still become hungry for, I want to see these character relationships move forward. And
the characters are hungry for it after all of that. Like there's a line at the beginning that is very much added because it's not in the book because Endless 8 hadn't been written yet, of him saying our endless summer is over, let's get back to it. Kyon wants stuff to happen,
Yes. And so it's like you really can't go back to the sort of episodic middle episodes of Boredom and Mystery Sign and Remote Island Syndrome, right? Which are all just sort of like little one-off adventures. You want to have another Melancholy-esque, here's like a bigger, longer sequential storyline that you have a lot of forward plot momentum and you've got a lot more character development. And so I think you as a viewer are just really hungry for that at this point in the story, both because you had Endless 8 and you had the whole run of season 1 one-off episodes that are after the Melancholy, right? Since all of like the big huge character development, plot momentum stuff from season 1 is all contained in the first 6 episodes of the chronological airing of season 2. You just really are hungry for it here. So I think that really helps, just sort of having a second novel style structure here for the overall plot. And then, as you say, you just have so much more context for the characters that it gives them a lot more room to do things with Haruhi and Kyon and Yuki and Mikuru and Koizumi, that if it's just coming straight off of Melancholy, you don't have a lot of like space to maneuver those characters because you just did a whole big story with them. And most of them are not, featured in the main plot line in that way. So it's like they're not like being moved in a really crazy way. So it's like having that sort of extra development of all those side characters here that give them a much more nuanced relationship to each other. It just, I think, gives this TV show version a lot more room to do something way more interesting. And so, yeah, I can definitely like see how in the novel some stuff coming straight off of Melancholy, that it wouldn't land as well.
Yeah, and I just I think it is just a testament to how good KyoAni are as storytellers. This is an all-star lineup of writers and directors for these 5, as we've talked about before. And you see it. It is absolutely gorgeous. If this had been a theatrical movie, no one would bat a fucking eye. It looks incredible. I think it has such a good heft to it. And the other thing I want to say about, I think, an adaptation, these episodes really speak to me to, I think, how much the performances, particularly the main 2 of Hirano and Sugita, enrich the material. Where, like, they are often reading the exact same words that are in the book. And I just think those characters have a life with those 2 actors that is on a whole other level. And as much time as we spend praising voice actors on this podcast, that's not always the case. I've absolutely read stuff where, I then watch the anime and I don't feel like a lot is being added to. I mentioned part of my project over the summer for a different thing, for PhD stuff. I was reading and then watching a lot of Sword Art Online. And that is a show where I don't think the anime adds to the manga or the light novels that much. And in fact, I think the vocal performances in the early seasons are fine, but I don't think they find a way into the characters that is revelatory to me. I think Hirano and Sugita find a way into these characters that is absolutely revelatory for me, even when they are reciting the exact information from the novels. There's just like, I think Haruhi feels like a more complex character. I think her motivations feel so rich and human. I think Kyon's reactions to her in the book can often, in part because the book is 100% his internal monologue and his view of things, he can be like overly kind of harsh and ironic and kind of cynical. And I just think the way Sugita massages all of that out and their chemistry together, these are 2 of the best performances I've ever heard in an anime. And I think these 5 episodes, which were the last 5 they did for the TV show as they were making them, really are a testament to that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that it's, especially because this story really pushes Kyon and Haruhi to really extreme places, right? So you need those actors to be able to sort of have them be very much, find the center of those characters, but be able to move them to really extreme edges, right? And so, Haruhi, we talked about with season 1, that one of the things I like about Haruhi as a character is that she fits into that tsundere archetype overall, but she like actually commits to it, or like Tanigawa as the author like commits to it with her, of having her actually be a thorny, difficult, frustrating, unpleasant person sometimes. And it's like too often the tsundere archetype to get on the same soapbox that Minoru Shiraishi got on that one Lucky Channel segment from Lucky Star where he goes off about tsundere, right? Too often it just becomes a like, we want to put that sort of affectation around the edges to play the archetype, but just to make the character more appealing. Whereas, like, it feels like Tanigawa is much more interested in having Haruhi feel like a real person that has those traits, because real people are like that, right? There are real people who are and can be very unpleasant and very sort of frustrating and do things that you're just like, how could you possibly do this or say this, and why are you like this? But at the same time, in other moments, there is a sweetness or like a beauty to those people that really attracts you to them, and there's a push and pull for those 2 sides of their personality, and obviously those people can evolve and grow and sort of feed the more positive side and move away from the more negative side. And I think that's just a really kind of rich character archetype to play with if you're actually wanting to commit to those nuances of that character design. And that's very much what Haruhi is like in the show. And the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi is like the epitome of that, because it pushes her to the most unpleasant, the most aggressive place. Like, I know that there are people who just like, they kind of like can't even really watch this story arc because of how sort of almost cringe, and not in a normal like cringe way, but I think there is a sort of like, you get sort of so frustrated by some of the way she treats Mikuru and stuff like that in some of these episodes. But I do think Hirano Aya and Sugita are able to sort of bring you out that other side and see that character growth and see like, okay, we can bring Haruhi into this really dark place and then bring her back out of that. And you can see why these characters like her and why there's so much good to her as long as she starts moving in this other direction. And so, yeah, so much of that comes from obviously the writing, but also you need two really great actors at the top of their game to be able to center those character movements.
And lest we forget, a group of great animators who can do the visual performance of the characters and all of that. But yeah, I just think... I think the thing that is so striking about these 5 episodes is that I think they do a really great job showing you both the good side of Haruhi, and I think they actually do cue in on it in a way that the skeleton of it is there in the book, but I think you feel it here, where like when you get to that moment where Kyon indignantly thinks to himself at the end of episode 4, like, well, at least she's fucking trying, all you lazy assholes here not caring about the cultural festival. Like, at least she's trying. And I think you see that side of her so much, and I think is also very much playing off the Endless Eight story, which is all about Haruhi wanting, I think in a real way, to give her friends a great vacation, but also wishing someone would do that for her a little bit, and that's what that story is about. And then I think you get that return here, and you do see some of the fun that they have. But then when it gets dark, it gets really dark. Like the scene in episode 4 where that build to her being monstrous, where she is doing absolutely the worst thing she has ever done in getting Mikuru drunk and trying to get Koizumi to kiss her. And you have this creepy piano music. You have these very distorted angles, a lot of Dutch angles, a lot of weird shots. And that moment where Kyon almost hits her. Like, that's played... I don't want to say comically in the book, but it's a little more screwball. It's a little more like, you know, hit you straight to the moon. That's just a little bit more on that level. And here it is like, Kyon, I think, is it's an out-of-body experience. It is like, he is so, and it's not just because Haruhi is hurting his friends. It's because Haruhi is hurting herself. It's because he thinks this person is better than this. And it is hurting him to a core. And it just, like, it's hard. It's hard to watch. It's powerful. And then I think the pullback from it in episode 5 and kind of the build back up to we made this crazy movie and her staying late overnight with Kyon to finish it. She doesn't help, but she stays. Is beautiful. And I think it defines a lot of what makes Haruhi so good. And it feels like instead of doing the story of Melancholy a second time, we're kind of seeing that structure, but with a different ending. I think an ending that is more reciprocal on their parts, you know?
Yeah, because it's like, I think what's very different about the structure this time around is that these characters know each other, right? So you're able to push them to those more extreme places. Because the Melancholy story is about Kyon getting to know who Haruhi is on like a basic level, right? He starts that story never having seen her before, he ends it kissing her. Here it's like, okay, all these people are part of this group, the brigade, the SOS brigade, right? All of them are sort of caught up into the maelstrom of madness that is Suzumiya Haruhi. Where do you go from there, and how do their relationships evolve? And I think it's like pushing it to this sort of near breaking point is really what needs to happen. And yeah, like that whole sequence in episode 4 we're talking about here, of where you have that darkest moment of them going to Tsuruya's house. She gets Haruhi or Mikuru drunk, right? There's an element of this, right, where Haruhi is kind of, there's, I think, like a sort of satire also of kind of, you know, of Hollywood or movie productions, and that kind of idea that Haruhi has in her head of what a director is and what a director does. And she's letting herself get really carried away, right? To the point where she kind of becomes kind of, you know, symbolically drunk on that sort of whole persona of the harsh director that's going to put their actors through shit and sort of be very demanding. But don't worry, I've got it all up here, right? I don't need to write it down. Like, everything is up in my head. And she's, she thinks that, like, this is what a director is and what a director does because that's what she's seen. And that's, like, what her impression of it is. Because she, of course, has no fucking clue what filmmaking is or the first thing about how to actually do it. So she's just sort of, like, mimicking what she's seen reflected in media that she's consumed. And she's not really thought critically about, like, the practicalities of that or, like, the outcomes of that or the effect that that behavior can have on real people. And she's just sort of mimicking it. And so I think that's one element of these episodes that I really like, is it showing her kind of naivete, right, of how young she is, that she doesn't really understand the broader implications of what she's doing to Mikuru at this point, and how awfully she's behaving towards her.
And I think there is some genuine remorse in the final episode. Yes. I think she's never going to say it, but, like, I think that's a really good description. And obviously, one thing to say up front, as a certified film bro here, I hate that term, but as a film person, obviously, and this is there in the book and it's here, I love all the filmmaking stuff. I think it's fucking hilarious. There is so much good writing and satire and jokes. There's actually one running gag that the anime for legal reasons cannot do that is very funny, which is that there's a running gag in the book that Haruhi keeps, like, giving people instructions and Kyon is like, what the hell are you talking about? And then she turns around and walks off humming the theme to different movies. And I noted them down here while I was reading. The first one is the theme to The Great Escape. Then it is Marilyn Manson's Rock is Dead from The Matrix. Then it is Bryan Adams' 18 Till I Die. And the last one she does is the end theme to Blade Runner, is the various themes she hums. They obviously, for legal reasons, cannot have her going around humming copyrighted music. So they do, in a couple scenes, have her hum some, like, Beethoven stuff. But that is a joke that just killed me, because it comes back basically once a chapter in the book, and it killed me every time, because the choices just get weirder. But I love there's even more in the book of, like, her weird obsession with winning specifically a Golden Globe, which I think is the funniest award you could pick for Haruhi to be obsessed with, because it is the most fake, stupid award that rewards the most bad behavior, which we actually did not know at the time this was written, but now we do. The Golden Globes are shit. We always know they were stupid, but we didn't know they were a bunch of abusive assholes running it. Anyway, tangent aside, I love all of that. It's extremely funny.
Yeah, and I know there's one joke, Jonathan, that you really like from early on, where
yes,
you want to give it?
Yes. Haruhi, this is just from the book, but it's verbatim in the show. Haruhi turned back to me. Kyon, do you know what the most important thing required to make a movie is? Well now, I scanned through all the movies that had left a deep impression on me. After some consideration, I confidently delivered my answer. Innovative concepts and earnest passion in the production, right? It's nothing abstract like that, Haruhi denied me. It's the camera, obviously. How do you film a movie without equipment?
Yeah, and the way they play that joke off in the show is fantastic, because, like, the expression on Kyon's face where he stops and he thinks, and it's like it's an expression you haven't seen Kyon have often, where he thinks he's saying something really clever. He's actually thought about it. Like, they stop, they spend a moment looking at him, think about it, and then he gets a little smirk on his face. He's like, I'm gonna say something really smart. Then Haruhi just immediately comes back. It's like, no, it's a camera, you fucking idiot. Like, you gotta get a camera.
I've already clipped it out just of, like, I want to find a place to show that scene to my students because it's so funny. It's so good.
Yeah, it's great. And yeah, that whole, because this is all stuff from the first Sigh episode, which, just to shout it out, that's the only episode from Haruhi that's directed by Yamada Naoko. So if you're wondering why did Yamada Naoko, who obviously had done a bunch of the Clannad episodes at this point, why she wasn't an Endless 8 director, it's because she did this one. So obviously the timing would not work out for her to do 2 episodes that close. So she did the first Sigh episode. But yeah, the first Sigh episode is so gorgeous. This is probably the one that most has that Nishio Futoshi look to it as well. Like, there's one in my screenshot gallery, the last screenshot I have of Mikuru as she turns to look at Kyon, is just like, oh, that is such a KyoAni looking Mikuru. Like, you can really see how their style is evolving on some of these character designs a lot. But yeah, I love this first episode. It's just seeing like all the little pieces get put into place of her going like get the camera and her making the deals with all the people in the shopping district. There's just like a lot of little moments like that I really love, as you, especially because if you've seen season one, you know what the movie's going to be. So there's like a particular pleasure to seeing all the weird little elements of that movie slowly build up, like her picking the outfit and all that stuff. It's so fun.
Well, and this is the other thing to talk about here, because, again, they did, to some extent, adapt this story in season one, because it is, pieces of it are all there in the Mikuru Asahina episode 0 thing, right? A lot of things that are referenced happen. And I think it is so fun to see, and it must have been like a very complicated process, I feel like, because they have to match all their production design in these 5 episodes to choices they made 3 years ago on that episode that was designed to look like a crappy home movie. And it's like exacting how they get, they have to have like Kyon standing with the camera in the right position to produce the angle that we saw in that episode 3 years ago. And it's like on point every single time. You have to, I don't know if they like reused voice lines from the episode 3 years ago, or if they had them record it to sound like that. But you often have like Mikuru like talking in the exact same way she did in that episode. It's fun. It must have been an interesting kind of like fun game to make all of this match up, because they're very exacting about it.
Yeah, you just have those little moments of like her having to read off of the cards or whatever while she's doing the sponsorship segment, and her having to like walk forward. And as you say, like all the, and I've assumed that they would have just re-recorded the lines, but all of them are so sort of precise. It's really great. You also just have like, I'm looking at some of my screenshots that I took from the second episode from Sigh. I love all the stuff of them going and they get the 2 like airsoft Desert Eagles. And I love the detail on like the boxes and all that kind of stuff. And so you have 2 Desert Eagle 50 cal AE 6mm BB guns, 10-inch models. It's like a Desert Eagle, but with a big extended barrel. And you have this whole scene with him and Koizumi in the fucking room, in their like club room, and they're loading the clips of the BB guns with the little BBs. And I love that like conversation as they're doing that. There's so much great and like detailed animation of them putting them in the fucking clip. Kyon shoots one of them at Haruhi's little like brigade leader pyramid she has on her desk. And then the best little detail, this is again from the Psy episode 2, which this was the one directed by Tako Noriko. Unfortunately, no crazy clouds, although there is a very good shot with a balloon in the background that is like, it's like the cloud shots. Yes. But there's this one detail where later at the end of the episode, they're all sitting in the club room and Kyon has a cup of tea and he takes a sip from the cup of tea. He sets it down on the table. And this is all while there's like Haruhi and all of them are fucking chatting about some shit. And you're just watching him as like he's like, can't quite set it down on the table right. It's like, what the fuck's going on? And he lifts it up and there's a little BB underneath it. And then he flicks the BB away to put the cup down. And it's like, there's such a great sense of tactileness to the way that works. Just like this, it's the audio and the animation of like, you can feel that feeling of you try to set a glass down and there's like a little ball or there's a little thing under it and you're like, what the fuck is happening? It's just so well observed, all the little physical details of some of those moments. It's great. I mean, it's just worth sort of really emphasizing how fucking luxurious and extravagant the production feels for these 5 episodes, because it's like there's a consistency to it, which is one of the things that makes it feel very movie-esque. Feels like there was like a real effort to make the productions feel extremely contiguous. So there's nothing sort of weird, even though they're directed by different people and you can see some of the trends of that direction. Like it feels so natural moving from one episode to the next. And all of them are of such extraordinarily high level of quality. And in terms of the direction, the animation, the sound, the voice acting, all of it is at like just A+ peak quality. It's really fucking good.
I couldn't agree more. I also love the gun model scene between the two of them. Just so many good images. The just like low key hilarity of them running around with these fucking like realistic guns is so funny. I love all of it. It's great. I love Koizumi through all of these. This was in response to something in a later episode of the Sigh, but I will just say it here. I wrote in my notes, oh my god, Koizumi wants to fuck Kyon so bad. There has never been a thirstier character in the history of anime. I think that was in response to something that happens in episode 5, where Koizumi comes back, but like, I'm right? Like, he wants to fuck Kyon so fucking bad that he's head over heels for this guy. Oh, he's so horny for him.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly after we got the Takanorico episode of Endless 8 is where I became like hypersensitive to it now. I mean, it was there in bits and pieces in season 1. Obviously, with Remote Island Syndrome Part 2 is where it gets like, you're like, what the fuck is going on with these two? But yeah, you get it a lot here. And all that stuff's great.
Really, this Haruhi Suzumiya is the story of a love triangle between Kyon, Koizumi, and Haruhi. And I think Koizumi is the only one aware he's in a love triangle. Yes. But that is the story of this show.
Yes, he's going to be there standing on the side with like this sort of very vague, mysterious smile, but we all know what's going on in the head of his.
Yes.
But we have the Sigh episode 3. This is the one directed by Ishihara Tatsuya. This is where we have one of my favorite scenes, just in terms of how it's put together, where like shit gets real, is where you have, this is the moment where Mikuru has the eye contact lens, and you get that replication of the shot from the episode 0 movie where you're looking through the camera and she does the Mikuru beam and she like blinks her eye and then you see a flash of light. And of course in the student movie version, it just sort of cuts to black and then it comes back up and Kyon has some narration to cover over it. In this, it's at the sort of midpoint of the episode, so where the eye catch would happen, and it goes to black when she blinks and you're from the camera's perspective. And then you have this moment where it comes back and Kyon like slowly puts the camera down with this sort of shocked look on his face, and then you see Yuki standing there with her hand in front of Kyon's face, and you realize that she has caught or like blocked the laser beam that has shot, because this is where Haruhi's powers are now affecting reality. There's this amazing sequence where Mikuru looks stunned, she turns, and then like the laser cuts through the little reflector that Koizumi is holding up, and it slowly falls, it like bends backwards and falls off. You see birds flying away in the background, and then Koizumi has this amazing look on his face of him realizing, oh my fucking god, I could have just been fucking decapitated. Like, it gets so real so fast, the sense of like real mortal danger, because Mikuru is shooting a fucking laser beam from her eyes, and it's just, you feel the absolute madness of that. Of course, then Yuki, like, I love the way they animate her, like, zooming, like, from the camera lens to Mikuru, tackles her to the ground, like, bites her to inject, like, whatever weird nanomachines in her. And you get this really gnarly shot where Yuki shows Kyon and Koizumi her hand, which is all ripped up from the fucking laser and burned to pieces, and it, like, zooms in on it. And you just get all the characters realizing, holy shit. Like, I just love how fucking real and intense it gets in that moment where you realize how dangerous Haruhi's powers can be in a way that's much more present than the, like, weird giants of light that maybe can remake reality. Like, that's obviously, like, existentially horrifying, but it's very distant and philosophical. This is like, oh, I could have had my fucking head cut off by a fucking laser beam. And it's nuts and it's great.
It is so good. I love how they do that sequence and all of it. I just, the comedy of how many terrible things start happening because of this fucking movie. And this is there in the book. And so there's even some more detail on this of like how much poor Mikuru's body is altered by Yuki. Not in ways that she feels, but like she has these like force fields around her, and she's got the nanomachines in here. Again, they're all like imperceptible, but like Yuki has to keep going in and like altering her body to like stop because like none of it gets reversed. Maybe at the very end of the story it does, we don't know. But like Mikuru doesn't like stop having laser eyes. Yuki just goes and puts nanomachines in her to stop the like refractions. It's hilarious. It's absolutely horrifying, and I love it.
Yeah, and it's just, man, I just remember getting to that scene is like, fucking hell. Like, remember when this is like sort of a pseudo slice of life show? Now people are like getting shot with fucking lasers, and it's nuts.
We also get. Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this also leads to more of the, like, debating among the different parties as to what Haruhi is. And I love some of this here. Like, obviously, Koizumi, who is always giving monologues, gives a big monologue about it, about, how Haruhi is this god changing the world to her whims. But then I also like, there's this super pointed moment from Yuki, who just, like, stares Kyon in the eyes and says, there is no proof anywhere of what Itsuki Koizumi says is true. And it's just like, it's very pointed of like, he could be completely bullshitting you, right? And so Yuki has that feeling. You also have over on Mikuru's side, her people's like theory that all of this stuff was already there and Haruhi's actual like magic is just discovering it, which doesn't completely gel with this story because like how would Mikuru's laser eyes exist and all of that stuff? But I do love there's never an answer. There's never any kind of like definitive answer. And there's even an indication of like Yuki staring Kyon dead in the eyes and going, that Koizumi guy could be completely full of shit. You know that, right? And in Yuki's way, it's very direct.
Yeah, and then Yuki also ends, this is a conversation from the last episode 5-1, but she also says in that scene that, like, that's true of her as well, right? There's no proof that you'd have no proof anywhere that I'm telling you the truth. I think, we believe Yuki because we've seen how much she trusts Kyon, but, she's objectively very true about what she's explaining to him. But yeah, I love all that stuff of where I think at this point, you've been, like, you as a viewer have kind of really accepted overall Koizumi's narrative of what Haruhi is, because it's the best explanation. It's the one that sort of accounts for the, like, enclosed spaces and all of that stuff. But it's nice to have that sort of thrown into more question at a certain point of, like, well, is that true? Like, from Mikuru's point of view, right? Like, it makes sense that from her point of view, it is Haruhi is, like, discovering or finding these things, because from a time traveler's point of view, those things have already always been there. If Haruhi is altering reality, that it is true. A contact lens has always been able to shoot laser beams. Like, that's just what it was. Like, if you time travel back to that point, like, it is just a contact lens that can shoot laser beams. And so it makes sense that all these characters, I think, are trying to understand Haruhi's abilities from the lens of their own personal framework, and none of them are quite perfect. None of them fully account for how or why she's able to do what she does, what the limits are of what she does, or anything like that. And yeah, it's good to sort of like, after you've been sort of, I think, kind of comfortable with the explanations you've been given, to have that be put into question again is very valuable for the series.
It's also just something I love about Koizumi as a character, is that I feel like you should always be about 90% sure that Koizumi is a good guy on their side, but I think there should always be about 10% of like, this guy could be a very nefarious actor, and we just don't know. He is by far the shadiest of the five main characters, and there's always in the back of your head like, okay, he is almost certainly a good person with good intentions who is genuinely their friend. But he might not be. And that's something that, like, I think is pointed in these episodes that I really like.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we mostly talked about the Sigh episode 4 stuff, but I do just want to, like, really emphasize that scene where Kyon almost hits Haruhi. There's, like, the way that that's shot and animated is so good. I think you described it as like he has this kind of out-of-body experience, that sense of like he himself doesn't realize what he's about to do when he lifts his hand up, and it's not until Koizumi grabs it that you have this moment of like he pauses and looks over and sees that. He had his hand lifted up, but I like that then Kyon doesn't, like, he has this out-of-body experience. He's kind of shocked that he was about to do this, but then he kind of doubles down on it. And I like that you have this moment, and it's kind of then reflected through the rest of episode 4, of like Kyon trying to figure out what he wants or is trying to do for Haruhi. And I think this is where you get that real big difference between him and Koizumi in their approach, where Koizumi just wants to sort of accede to whatever it is that Haruhi wants to do, right? To like, she doesn't want to make any waves. And so the idea of hitting Haruhi or even defying her is kind of madness to him, right? And so Koizumi kind of, chides Kyon later, saying it's like, I thought you were a more reasonable person. But what Kyon is trying to do, and he just doesn't know how to do it, is he's doing this for Haruhi, right? He knows that's like, if all we do is coddle this weird godchild, that's never going to be good for her. Maybe that means that we get by easier, and for Koizumi that's convenient, but that doesn't help her in any way, and he wants Haruhi both to be happy, but also to be a good person and like grow and sort of evolve and become better. And so, obviously I don't think that like hitting her would be an actual good way to do that. But like the reasoning he gives is he says like whether it's an animal or a person, like when someone does something wrong, if you have to, you got to hit them to like correct them, right? He's seeing it as a sort of like we have to correct her in like, he has a very Captain Bright from Gundam-esque philosophy of like sometimes you gotta slap a motherfucker, right? It's very much to me echoes, and I'm sure if Sugita would have talked to you about this on the day when he recorded this, of he probably wanted to insert a Captain Bright ad-lib of like, what's wrong with hitting him?
No, what he would say is, she needs a correction, damn it.
Yes. And it's very much that scene where Captain Bright hits Amuro. It's that same kind of idea. But it's also that idea of like trying to sort of push this person to be better and try to encourage them to see the error of their ways, even if, obviously violence, and particularly amongst minors, is especially like, you should not be doing that. But it's a really powerful moment because it's understandable because Haruhi has gone to such an extreme. Like it's such a low to effectively drug Mikuru by getting her drunk without her consent in order to get her to kiss Koizumi on camera is so fucked up. And I think, again, Haruhi, I don't think has like the broader context to really fully understand exactly what she is doing there. But she should know better. And it becomes fairly understandable in that moment why Kyon would be pushed to the point where he'd want to actually physically hit her for doing that.
Yeah. But then, as good as that scene is, my favorite stuff is at the school after that. There is this, the way they depict the scene where he is eating with Tanigata and the other friend, Taniguchi, sorry. But he's eating with his two friends, and they're kind of, because they were involved in the movie briefly, and they're very mad about it, and they're, complaining, and there's the way that scene is shot. And again, this is such a good example of adaptation because this part of it is not specified in the book. It's all these close-ups on Kyon playing with his rice in his like food bowl and just like kind of toying with it and thinking about it. And it's a technique that Haruhi uses across all 28 episodes, is these little like going in on small weird details to kind of show how people are thinking and how their mind is wandering or something. But it's a very powerful version of that scene, and he comes to this fundamental frustration of like, as much as Haruhi infuriates me, you people infuriate me more because you're so fucking boring and you don't care about anything. And then he goes to basically say this to Haruhi, to say, let's finish this film and make it the best it can be. And there's this amazing shot, and this is an edition of the anime, where she is preparing to put her hair up into a ponytail when he walks in, and then she quickly doesn't do that. And again, this is a love story.
Yes, yeah, but that moment for Kyon of him, the thing that frustrates him is that he is pushed to this like breaking point with Haruhi, but at the same time, it's, he wants to have fun, right? It's like he wants to do these things. He loves being the fucking cameraman. He loves being the cameraman and fiddling with all that shit. In the same way, he had a fucking blast making the goddamn website for the SOS Brigade. Like, he's gonna bitch and moan and grumble about it, but like it's actually what he wants to do. And if he was left to his own devices, he would never kind of do that. He'd never go outside of his comfort zone to learn how to design a website or learn how to shoot a camera. But he's really good at that stuff when he applies himself to it, and he has a lot of fun with it. That he wants to make a movie and edit a movie and all this shit. It's just he doesn't know how to do it. That he wants to go hang out with all of his buddies at the end of summer break and do his homework with them. But he's not willing to go to the length of actually like asking them and putting himself out there. And it's like Haruhi is always putting herself out there, right? Sometimes to the extent where it becomes an issue, and maybe she should reserve a little bit more and pull back, and that's what Kyon is there to help her with. But fundamentally, that decision to, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do something amazing, I'm going to do something different, that's something that Kyon really needs. And he's not going to sit there and have Taniguchi just sort of bitch to him about it. But of course, like what Kyon says in his internal monologue in that moment is he sees that, he and Taniguchi are very similar kinds of people. And what frustrates him about all the stuff that Taniguchi is talking about, and him sort of dissing the movie, is that Kyon is basically doing the same thing all the time, even if on the inside he knows that Taniguchi is the same way. He really thinks the movie's cool and wants to he wants to make the movie. The reason why Taniguchi is upset is because it cut him out of the fucking process. Taniguchi Taniguchi's whole function of the story is he's like the Kyon who couldn't be Kyon. He was the guy who knew Haruhi in middle school. He asked her out, right? He liked her, and she eventually shot him down. Like, all that's implied. They don't say it directly, but it's very strongly implied that's what happened. And at a certain point, Taniguchi kind of gave up and walked away from that, even though he's sort of always on the sidelines of what's going on and looking in and being kind of jealous of it. And Kyon, it's a vision of like what Kyon could be like if he totally abandoned this, and he'd be like a boring, annoying guy in the back of the class who's just snarky, and that's it, and that's all he has. And Haruhi helps pull him out of that.
And this is why it's a love story. It is a story about two people who fill in each other's gaps, right? It is about, the thing that is Kyon's biggest failing, his inability to push himself out of his comfort zone and go for it, is Haruhi's greatest strength. And Haruhi's greatest failing, which is a complete lack of boundaries, is something Kyon has a natural affinity for recognizing, and being able to put that out there. And the scene where he comes into the SOS brigade and she's putting her hair up and then she stops and then he says, "We're going to make this movie, let's finish it." And the animation of her like turning from she's unsure of how to react to this just big, bold Haruhi smile. It's the most beautiful thing in the world.
It's fantastic. And then that leads us into the Sigh episode 5, which is my favorite of them. This is the one directed by Ishidate Taichi, written by Ishihara Tatsuya. And like, it's crazy to me how much they jam pack into this one episode. So much shit happens because this episode, it starts with them picking up shamisen, and then obviously it ends with the movie airing. And so like a lot of stuff happens, but you have all the shit with shamisen is just the best. He's like the best fucking anime cat ever. And his incredibly deep, rich Japanese voice is wonderful. Shamisen, the cat, is voiced by Kenichi Ogata, who is just like an amazing voice actor who's been around since like the mid 1970s. I mean, he had roles in like the original like Space Battleship Yamato anime. He was in like Mazinger Z, like he was in like the old shit. We've seen him because he was Sergeant Denham in episode 1 of Mobile Suit Gundam, of the 3 Zaku pilots that go and infiltrate Side 7. He's the leader of those 3. He's one of the dudes who gets got by Amuro in that episode.
Anime history, he is there for like ground zero of anime history. And again, what's so mind-blowing is they didn't cast him for this episode. They cast him for his 2 lines in the episode 0 thing that is just this brief, like the briefest of cameos in the like movie version of this. And then they bring him back for this. Oh my God, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's amazing. But that opening scene where they get shamisen, they start petting him. He's right on Yuki's shoulder, and then he starts talking. And his whole thing he has this whole like big philosophical thing about like, well, am I really talking, or are you just perceiving the sounds I'm making as being like words? And he's like giving this whole big philosophical discussion in this super rich, cool voice as he's slowly sliding down. Yuki's cape. Yes. And he keeps on having to reposition himself. It happens like 2 or 3 times. It is like the fucking best scene ever. I love it so much.
The cat animation is so good. The detail of him sliding down Yuki's cape and then crawling back up, and Yuki not moving at all. Yuki just is like, she's got a cat crawling all over her. She doesn't pay attention to it. This is just, she's seen much weirder things than this at this point, let's be clear. And I love it all. And then, of course, shamisen becomes Kyon's family cat and is living with his sister. And I forgot until I started seeing the season 1 episodes again after this. He's in the theme song and the end theme of season 1. And he is just, and I think he's in some of the episodes too, because he's just the cat that lives with Kyon. And they had it all there. They had it all ready, even though they hadn't actually done the shamisen story. Fuck, if I ever get a cat, which would require me overcoming some pretty serious allergies, but if I ever get a cat, I am naming it shamisen.
Yeah, and then hoping that it eventually starts talking with Kenichi Ogata's voice, because it's the best cat voice ever. I love it so much.
Yes.
You then also get, after all the stuff with shamisen, you get a scene that like activates a weird part of your brain after you've watched all the Endless 8 episodes, where you have all the characters at the cafe from Endless 8. They're in the same booth that has the weird little like dudes who are drinking like beer or something that are like on the side of the booth. I love that weird detail of that set. Like it's so good. I wonder if that's like modeled after a real cafe or something, because it's so good how that space is realized. And they're sitting in that corner booth as always, but Haruhi's not there, and there's like all these really powerfully suggestive shots of them looking over at the corner seat that Haruhi normally sits at, and it's empty while they're having this conversation. You have all these great shots of like Koizumi's like chin that's reflected in the coffee cup below him, or him and Kyon distorted in the reflection of a glass. It feels like Ishidate Taichi intentionally shot this scene to be like, those are like the really stylized weird episodes of Endless Eight. It's shot very much like that.
Yes. And I would absolutely believe they modeled this on an actual cafe, because I was looking through all the Blu-ray bonus features today, and I didn't realize there's a 90-minute documentary just on the location scouting for Haruhi. I think it's specifically about season 1, but I am 100% sure that they location scout, because one, I've been to cafes in Japan that look like that, and two, it's like the detail of it is just too real and like thought out for it not to be, because we've talked about this back in the season 1 episode, how much they wanted this to feel real, that it is an anime, it is stylized, but like the camera placements and the locations and all of that, there's nothing exaggerated about those. Camera placements are exaggerated, but in a way that you could do with a real camera. All of that stuff, right? Yeah. So I had the exact same thought getting to that cafe, where like I feel like they should have had like Yuki's eye twitching through that whole scene of just like, please, I don't ever want to come back here again, guys.
Yeah, because of course, for all of them, this is like the second time we've been here. I mean, I think the implication is that they go to the cafe all the time, but like, they don't realize it's like Yuki has spent 500 years sitting in this fucking cafe. Like, can we go somewhere else for once? Jesus Christ.
Poor Yuki.
Yeah, poor Yuki. This is also the episode where we have the scene that you talked about earlier, where Yuki breaks down the different explanations that Kyon has been given over the past episode or two for Haruhi's powers, and tells him it all could be a lie. But that scene is the moodiest fucking scene you have ever seen, because they're in the brigade room after hours, and it's like, some sort of like foggy or overcast day, so it's super dark, and she's sitting there in her fucking witch outfit with her hat that's covering her eyes for most of it. And then you have this one shot where it's a zoom in on her face, and it's sort of half covered by the brim of the witch hat, but you see one eye, and it's like, and I think this is the line where she tells him that he doesn't know, like he has no proof that she's not lying to him too. And like, it's the most emotive I feel like you ever see her face. There's something that's like, you see a real sadness in Yuki here, which again, I think is very suggestive after all the Endless Eight episodes, where she's, still dealing, I think, psychologically with the fallout of all of that shit. But it's like such a powerfully dark, moody scene with these two characters, and a space that's usually so kind of bright and energetic, right? The brigade room is this sort of super brightly lit, just like very sort of powerful place of energy because Haruhi's there, and just having the two of them sitting there alone in this overcast day is really powerful scene.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the flip side of that conversation is the scene with Kyon, or Koizumi, that we were talking about earlier, where they are standing on this bridge and there's all this green light. And that is where I wrote down in my notes, oh my God, Koizumi's got it bad for Kyon.
Yes, I took a lot of screenshots of that scene because it is so fucking suggestive. It is like all the little like sort of glances that Koizumi gives to Kyon throughout it, and there's this one point where like he slicks his hair back and then leans forward on the railing as he turns and looks at Kyon while he's talking. It's just, it's like it is very erotic. The conversation is like, particularly from Koizumi's side. I don't know, like Kyon's not super receptive in this moment, but man, Koizumi is down bad. And there's this whole implication of like that something has happened with him and we don't know what exactly. Like, it feels like, there's all this shit going on with whatever this organization he's a part of. And there's this whole big thing he talked about how, like, there are other organizations that have been after Haruhi's powers. And it's like behind the scenes, there has been like violence and intrigue and espionage and backstabbing. And, he kind of implies like, I have seen and done things that like you wouldn't really, that are like not a part of the world that you live in. And like being in this school and doing all this stuff is like him getting to live a kind of normal life he would not normally be able to live. And I love this sort of like very little suggestion of this whole thing, this whole world, this whole place out there. And I don't know if in any of the late, like, I'll just say, this none of this shit comes up in like the Disappearance movie. I do not know if the later light novels touch on this stuff or not. I know that there are like some like other new characters that enter that are there's like other supernatural people and another future person. I know that some of that stuff happens in the later light novels, but I love this sort of suggestion of there's like all this other shit that Koizumi has been a part of, and him being able to do this stuff with Kyon and Haruhi is him being able to have a more normal life than he had up to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think watching the show again and these season 2 episodes really clarified for me how much I love Koizumi as a character. I love all the characters, but he is, because he's hard to love because he is the weirdest, thorniest, just in the sense of you're never 100% sure of where his sort of loyalties or mind is at. But I think that scene is, one, you learn that in his head, he is living in a boys' love anime, very clearly.
Yes.
And two, that yes, this is, his whole like kind of grin and bear it view on life comes from somewhere. It is learned from something, and that is suggestive. This episode also is where we get just the madcap montage of all the crazy things that happen on the movie, like the guns now shooting out big bursts of water, and Yuki almost having her head blown off by the guns, including there's that great shot of her like dodging out of the way and her hat kind of getting blown off, but she's protecting Shamisen because, Yuki knows Shamisen's a good cat. You have the cherry blossoms blooming at the wrong time of the year. It's all so good.
Yeah, I love how you had earlier there was all the white, or like all the pigeons had turned into like doves or whatever, and then now they're like, I forget what it was, like they're
carrier pigeons. They're the extinct. Yeah, they're the carrier pigeons. If you played Mahotsukai no Yori, you had a whole big thing on them. But yes, it's like somehow they came back. I love that. Like Haruhi's powers are just bringing the world to madness, and then you have that moment at the end of the conversation with Koizumi where Kyon has his revelation of where Koizumi has this whole thing of he wants us like, oh, just in the movie with it was all a dream, and Kyon knows that Haruhi is never going to go for that. She's going to think that that's the most basic bitch dumb shit she's ever heard in her life. There's no way she's going to go with that. But they have to find a way to get Haruhi to like understand in her soul and feel that it's all fiction, because the problem is she's let herself get so carried away, she's losing the ability to like subconsciously distinguish between what's happening in the movie and what's happening in real life. And that's when Kyon looks up and he has this thought of like, how do we do this? How do I convince her that it's just, or get her to think about that it's just fiction? And then he has that moment of revelation. And I love the shot where he looks up at the sky, and it's been that scene that's washed in these sort of eerie green, like greenish yellow lights. And then when he looks up, he sees this beautiful purple night sky with like the Milky Way, and like it's like he's staring at a fucking nebula. Obviously, like if the sky actually looked like this, it would be like the fucking end of the world is happening. But it's such a beautiful way of like representing the beauty of the universe out there. And of course we then later learn that what he does is he goes and convinces her to record the narration that just says, all this is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to places real are just a coincidence, and all that shit. That shit you had at the end of the credits of the episode 01 as well. You have all that she says there. And I love it twice. He makes her say it twice.
Yes, just to make sure it really sinks in. And it's such a great solution. I love that it's just like, oh, that's all you have to do. It's just like that one little thing that, especially because it's much more common in Japanese media than even in English media, I feel like, that you have that weird little disclaimer. And so just sort of, oh, you just need that one little piece, and it makes it feel it's like proper and official. And we can't get sued. So there you go. Let's just throw it in there.
Yes. Love it. I love the scene where they are working together on the computer in the evening and they stay over. They don't get anything done, but then the movie, there's a couple of ways to read it of what happened. I think there's some part of Haruhi's power, or did someone else come in and finish it? But it is the very crappy CGI effects are accomplished, even though Kyon was not able to do it, and they both just slept all night and that's a great ending. I was kind of expecting this episode would actually wrap up with them like starting the screening, and then it would go into the episode 0 thing that airs next as episode 25. But instead we do get, and I think there is an epilogue that's got a little bit of this in the book, but of Haruhi and Kyon effectively having a date together, which they wouldn't call it that, but they're alone out at the cafe, and he pisses her off, but in a way that of course just makes her love him more.
Yeah, well, because that's where he tells her, like, you know, oh, you've been wanting to find aliens and people from the future and people with superpowers. What if I told you that they're right here? And she goes, oh, yeah, what are you going to tell me that it's Mikuru, Koizumi, and Yuki? And he just sort of freaks out. It's like, I mean, well, yeah. And then she just, she blows up at him and gets mad that, you know, that how stupid an idea this is. And he ends it with such a good delivery of Sugita going, yada, yada, which is a very, like, Japanese... It's like, it's not a thing that I feel like Japanese people actually say, but it's such a kind of, like, literary expression for, like, good grief kind of thing, as he sort of sighs and puts his head in his hands. And Haruhi walks away, again, in a moment that, like, is very suggestive after the Endless Eight, because they're in that same cafe, and you have a shot of Haruhi, like, storming out and walking out, and you see her walk, and, like, the doors close behind her. It's just, like... That was the reset point for 7 episodes or 6 episodes. I guess since they didn't see it in the first one, but yeah,
she waits there for him. She waits there, and that is how the season ends effectively, for at least the new material of the season, because it does the thing where the credits. That episode has no opening or end credits. They filled the time completely. They just run the credits over the beginning and the end scenes, so it is just a complete 24 and a half minutes of animation, and yeah, it's a very good ending.
Yeah, it's a fantastic ending. One thing I also want to shout out, I am very much married to my Hatsune Miku Sonic Miku Twitter avatar. If I were to change it, though, I would change it to the image of Kyon after he's woken up from falling asleep on the keyboard, and he's got, like, the impression of the keys is like on his cheek, and he's fucking drooling, and he just has, like, it's the least flattering any anime character has ever looked. And then you get a shot where Haruhi comes up behind him and, like, pulls his desk backwards, and he has his arms outstretched like he's about to type on the keyboard. He has no idea what's going on, and Sugita just goes like, he makes, like, Frankenstein or, like, zombie noises. It's so fucking funny. I love it so much.
It's great. Yes. I change my Twitter avatar more than you do, so maybe I will use that around the time this is airing, and that will be funny. But, oh my god, yes. It's great. The Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi is great. I think the last thing we need to talk about on this episode, though, Sean, is kind of how this all works within the Season 2, Season 1 chronological airing framework. And what interested me is that before, like, when we got to the end of the Psy episodes, I thought, okay, this is a cool experiment they've done, but, like, I would probably recommend people watch Season 1 in its broadcast shuffle order, and then just watch the Season 2 episodes in their order, and that feels like a good 2-season experience. I think some of the recontextualizations earlier on are interesting, but not essential. But then I think the final 4 that come after this are where that changed my mind. I do think, like, the Mikuru Asahina episode 0 it's obviously you have to watch it after the Sigh. You just want to see all of that stuff. It did also, though, like, underline to me how much that episode was made as an introduction, because it's very pointed with where characters come in and kind of how they are introduced to you in the very playful way of they are introduced in this completely ridiculous framework that is actually weirdly true about who they are, which is the fun game that it's playing. But then I think the last 3, Live Alive in particular. Live Alive is just a different episode in this context. And then Someday in the Rain, I already have said it's one of my very favorite episodes of anime. Somehow an even more favorite episode of anime. It's just unreal. And I do think, like, those final couple of episodes, there's an added weight to them that is really extraordinary in this context.
Yeah, I agree, yeah, especially with Live Alive and Someday in the Rain. I mean, you know, The Adventures of Mikuru Asahina episode 0 is, like, it's cool. Like, obviously you want to watch it after the Sigh to sort of see that stuff. Honestly, it's more just like watching that episode when you know what the show and the characters are. In and of itself is just sort of a wildly different experience. And you're kind of able to be more in on some of the joke and see the other elements of what that episode is doing. You know, that's like, it's just such a different episode when you know what the show is, really. But yeah, Live Alive being this sort of payoff for the contentious and like tempestuous relationship between Kyon and Haruhi in the Sigh is so satisfying. And just getting that sort of, how sort of like mellow that episode is in Someday in the Rain are, and even The Day of Sagittarius, which has a little bit more action in its sort of ridiculous, we're animating the video game like it's really happening kind of thing. But the, everything in there is so sort of like plain compared to we are trapped in a 500-year-long insane time loop, and Haruhi is causing like fucking lasers to shoot out of people's eyeballs in it to turn spring in the fucking winter and all that nonsense. Like, the world is like fraying apart at the seams, and Haruhi is drugging motherfuckers. Like, it gets pretty dark in the Sigh. And Live Alive, Day of Sagittarius, and 70 in the Rain are so kind of peaceful. And there's nothing super crazy or supernatural that's happening there. In Day of Sagittarius, like specifically nothing is supernatural is happening there. Like Yuki solves the problem deliberately by avoiding using any sort of extreme methods. She's just reprogramming the program those guys already had by typing in code in her laptop. She's not accessing fucking spells or like the nature, like changing the fabric of reality with information control or whatever the fuck else she normally does. And so there's a very deliberate arc, I think, there of seeing that come in these last few episodes of where everything else has sort of settled down and you don't need that. Kyon's sort of confidence in Day of Sagittarius, he expresses that Koizumi reads in on, that Haruhi is not going to have a fit or a meltdown and reality is not going to fray apart at the seams because we lost this computer game with the computer club. That is like such a great payoff to all the shit you saw in Sigh. And it is so effective that it's in season 1, that stuff in its original context serves as the sort of vision of where their relationship is going to be after you see the last 2 Melancholy episodes. But here you've had that whole adventure, and here it's sort of properly now payoff for all the character development they've gone through, especially with the Sigh of Suzumiya Haruhi episodes put in there in that context.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think these final 3 just took on a whole new life to me than they had in season 1. And I love their use in season 1. These were 3 of my favorites from season 1. Maybe my 3 favorite episodes, period, from season 1 are these 3. But like, I do think they just take on a different life as they come here with all of the season 2 material added at the end. And it's also something where, like, Sean, how many anime can you think, or TV shows, anything, that get as big and crazy as Haruhi does, that end with 3 episodes this simple? Like it is a show that, like, Haruhi is slice of life-ish, but it is also a big fantasy, and it is avant-garde, and it is all these things. But in the end, it is just 3 pretty normal daily life stories where all of that other stuff doesn't even really enter into the equation at all. And amazing things happen in terms of the animation. Live Alive has one of the greatest sequences of musical performance in the history of animation in it, and it's unbelievable to watch. And you're like, oh, KyoAni's going to do a lot more of this, aren't they? Because they're very good at it, and they would, obviously. And, then you have The Day of Sagittarius, which is just so fun, and I think draws such a good circle around, as you say, the trust these characters have in each other now, while having just a silly amount of fun with it. And then Someday in the Rain is maybe the most perfect episode of anime I've ever seen. That episode, I was so excited to get back to it and watch it a second time, Sean, and it blew me away all over again. I loved that episode so much. We talked about it so much on that episode. There's such quiet power to it. And I think as episode 28, instead of episode 9 or whatever it was in season 1, wherever it comes, there is an extra power to it. And I just think it is easily, if I'm making a list of my favorite anime episodes ever, it's somewhere in that top 10, maybe even top 5. I love it so much.
Yeah, and it is like, it has always in like my heart been the finale of the TV show. Because that is how the context in which I originally watched it. And it is a cool episode in the way it's used in the broadcast order also. But it is like, I just love the contrast, right? I love the contrast of, for the season 1. And again, like I think we both agree that for what they had for season 1, they made the right choice in doing the broadcast order, and that shuffle order idea, and ending with the Melancholy episodes as the finale or episode 6 as the finale. Like, that was the right choice, and it made sense, and it worked really well. But it's like, it's cool to be able to then, with the new material, see it this way also, right? Like, to be able to see, okay, those episodes, like the Melancholy of Suzumiya episodes, are awesome in the way that they were distributed originally and in that original context work great. But when you have all these other episodes that flesh out those characters further in points that take place after the Melancholy episodes, like, it wouldn't make sense in this context when you've got Endless 8, you've got Bamboo Leaf Rhapsody, you've got the Sigh episodes. In this context, it would be weird to try to like shove Melancholy episode 6 to be the finale, because that needs to come before those other stories to give the context that those stories have to push the characters beyond where they are in that original Melancholy storyline, to the extent that you couldn't really break it up that way. And so it is cool to like, it's a sort of, you can have your cake and eat it too scenario, that both versions work so well. And I'm very glad that we watched it this way, because I think it's kind of the best way to do it, because you can get all that, like the mystery and the oddity and the interest of that original shuffle order with what those 14 episodes were. And that thing then makes it much richer to come at all that material again and then see where it goes and pushes beyond the threshold of what those original 14 episodes were able to do.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. I wrote in my notes, Sean, as I was wrapping up watching everything, that, and I think this is my ultimate thesis on Haruhi, I think Haruhi is to anime what Twin Peaks is to American TV. Mm-hmm. I think, which makes me wonder, is Disappearance going to be the Fire Walk with Me of Haruhi? I have hopes in both directions, because that's a very dark movie. I don't want things that bad to happen to my Haruhi characters, but I do want it to be that good, and I have heard from you and others that it is. But I do think, like, you and I hold Twin Peaks obviously in extremely high regard, and I think there's similarities both in just how much, like, how relentlessly they push the medium forward and push at its outer edges, and also that there are imperfections along the way. There are episodes of this show that I think work less well than others. In either version, I don't think Remote Island Syndrome is that interesting. I think the boredom episode, the baseball one, I think doesn't work nearly as well in the chronological order, because it is so clearly this one that is trying to, like, pre-fill you in on some information, where if you watch it in the original shuffle order, it's intriguing, and in the chronological order, it feels redundant. So there's, like, imperfections, but they are in service of something that is singular, just utterly singular, and makes you feel like it is at various points in various ways rewiring your understanding of what the medium can do. And that's about the highest praise I could give any show. And I think this is one of the best things I've ever watched.
Yeah, I have loved this show so much on rewatching. I mean, I obviously loved it originally, but I also had like a complicated relationship with it originally because of how it's such a hard show to know how to approach in 2023 or in 2014 when I originally watched it, because it's so fucking weird. And very intentionally, it's so weird. But it makes it a hell of a good show for a podcast, because it's like when it forces you to like sit down and really think your way through how you're going to watch it and be very deliberate and really sort of like, go through it really thoroughly, especially with the Endless 8, which is just a completely different experience than I had with it the first time. It has made me appreciate this show so much more than I originally did. I mean, we originally were putting together this podcast. Obviously, I knew that Haruhi would be a big part of the KyoAni season, but I had absolutely no idea originally how we were going to do podcasts on it. And it took a long time for me to sort of figure out to just go with let's try to make it as close to how you could have originally watched it in the first place. I think that is the best approach, but it's also one that you have to have a lot of faith in the show in order to go that route and sort of like tune out all the other people who are going to, the people who go around with like, oh, here's your watch orders for this, that, and the other thing. And this is how you skip, whatever episodes of like Star Wars, The Clone Wars and all that kind of shit. Like any of those other shows that sometimes do things with chronology and stuff like that. Haruhi does more with that than any other show I think I've seen in terms of fucking with your head. But it turns out just trying to go about it the way it was originally created to be seen, even if that means you're going to rewatch all of season 1 again. It's such a good show, you're going to want to watch all of season 1 again.
I couldn't agree more. And next week, Sean, we will finish a year in podcasting. We will finish a project with Haruhi, and we will celebrate Christmas with an episode airing on Christmas for a movie that I am to understand is set around Christmas, The Disappearance of Suzumiya Haruhi.
Yes, so we've talked about this, this part is when Christmas came to Otaku Town, and next week it truly will come. And oh my God, I am so excited to finally watch this movie for a podcast. So yes, next time we're going to find out, hey, where did that Suzumiya Haruhi go?